Art is too important not to share. Welcome to the Allie and Callie Artcast.
Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie, and we're with the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. We're recording today at Range in their conference room.
Yes, very nice.
It's very nice, and we have a little bar set up, and
yes,
we have
that's
our
right.
margaritas.
Because why? Because we're celebrating.
Because we're celebrating. It's our 75th episode.
It is.
Yay!
And we are taking a break after this episode to enjoy the holidays and kind of reboot and get ready for the spring, because it is our hiatus.
It is.
Because sometimes we need a break.
Sometimes we need a break.
You're probably tired of hearing us anyway, so
right.
We have a blast.
There's no way they could be tired of hearing us.
We're having so much fun. And while we're on hiatus, we're going to go down to Boise and go celebrate Allie's big award.
Oh, yeah!
She won the Governor's Award for Administrative Excellence.
Yes.
In the arts.
In the arts.
And that's you, Allie
Arts
Shute.
Administration. Something like that.
It's a mouthful.
I know it
anyway,
is.
You
but
won
I'm pretty excited.
It's very exciting. So we're going to have a fun time. We're going to go down to Boise for a couple of days, and
Yep, my husband and I are getting to fly down, all expenses paid trip, which is pretty exciting. But I'm going to dump him and make him fly home by himself so I can stay one more night and drive home with you guys the next day.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
We're excited. We're going to have fun.
It'll be great.
Yeah. It's going to be super fun. And I haven't been to Boise and actually played. I've only been there and auditioned.
Boise is so fun.
So you guys will have to show me around the place.
Well, we'll do that.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
You know what else I'm excited for?
What?
Talking to Michael Koep.
Me too. Our guest today is Michael Koep, who has written a trilogy, but also then wrote a book that I call a bit of a love story, because there's a lot of things that he loves in it, and it is so well written. It did not take me long to read it. So welcome, Michael.
Hi.
Welcome back. Yes.
Hi, guys.
We loved this book. We loved it. I loved it. I read it in less than 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
I did. Well, when I love a book, it doesn't take me long.
So the title I have found really intriguing.
I love it.
It's called Gigmentia, and it is a little bit about, or a lot about, the gigs that Michael has played with the bands, and the fact that he's met so many people, and as you know, it's like this thing that happens to you, that you meet so many people. After a while, things start to run together, and
bit of a blur,
right? But it's also kind of ties into the fact that his mother was diagnosed with dementia.
Yes.
So it's really cool, connected piece. So
well, thank you. I'm delighted that you're enjoying it. What's exciting is, and kind of vexing all at the same time, is it doesn't come out until March next year, and it comes out the day before my mother's birthday, which is exciting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
it is great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were lucky enough to get advanced reader copies.
It says not for sale, so
it does say.
But
not
we
for
have
sale.
them.
But we have them. But we're selling it in advance.
We're pre-selling.
Well, we are writers and artists. We can use all the help we can get.
That's right.
So that's the big trick right there, for sure.
Well, tell us a little bit about this book. I love the fact that you write all the time, that you just have a journal, that you keep track of things.
Yeah.
What made you write this book?
It wasn't really, I didn't set out to write a book ultimately. I've journaled since I was very young, almost every day, but for the most part I'm writing something down and keeping bullet points, and I had a friend, ultimately I started writing just in narrative form, so I would write stories with full paragraphs, and that's really long to do that, but I fell into that habit. Later in life, when I was doing a lot of rock touring, I had a dear friend named Dave who taught me how to bullet point I watched how he would do it, and he would, in his journal, he would just write down the little bits and pieces, bullet point, the day's weather and, what happened really quickly. And sometimes he would garnish it with color or a smell or a taste, so that perhaps later he would go back and maybe turn it into a narrative piece. I don't know that he ever did, but I adopted that later and made it to be really great stuff to feed off of if I'm going to start to write. But I had always wanted to keep track of moments as a musician, the kind of musician that I am. So the book begins talking about how this isn't a story of gold records, and it's not Wembley Stadium, and it's not sold out shows, and but more about really what it's like to be a blue collar musician, and to take yourself out into the most bizarre shows, places to play in backyards and on concert stages and in bars where there's 3 drunk guys in the back, and people's living rooms and restaurants, and every one of these places being different and having to sort of figure out a way to be able to entertain. And so as I was thinking about this, I in 2018, I had a book that I was trying to finish called The Shape of Rain, which is the third of the trilogy.
Right.
And I thought, I'm just going to keep track of this summer festival of shows. So it's like 50 shows, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a journal to every show, and I'm going to write down and keep track of those memories and try to see everything I can see. And slowly, I realized that I was paying attention to things that I would ordinarily miss.
Really?
So then it became an exercise of what I lamely call paying attention to the mundane. I think much smarter people than me would call it being present.
Right.
But I was trying to pay attention to the things that didn't seem to matter most of the time. All of us have our jobs, and we forget what our coffee mug looks like in the morning.
Right.
Something as simple as that, as you're sitting and you're just trying to come out of the stupor of sleep, and you look at your coffee mug and you don't really notice it. But this was the time for me to notice those kinds of things. And I found that the more and more I did, to me, it became very sort of poetic. There was a lot of real beauty there. Even the tree in our front yard.
I love it.
Sheree and I have a tree.
Walter.
Yeah, Walter.
I love that your car has a name, the tree has a name, everything has a name. That's beautiful.
Yeah, there's
I
little
love
bits
that.
and pieces that we just personifying certain things that Michael and I would talk about Finn a lot, and my son, and So as I was doing that, as I was collecting all of these memories and all these moments, and really trying to be disciplined about it, my mother was diagnosed with frontal temporal dementia. I think I'm saying that right. And I found this really strange juxtaposition, or this irony, where I'm collecting moments and she's shedding them.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything that I'm trying to remember, I'm watching her slowly disappear. And then after her passing, of course, I had to try to figure out how to grieve, and I wasn't sure how to do that. Mom had been ill for a long time in her life with depression, as the book says, and depression and other physical maladies. And when she was gone, it took me some time to try to figure out how to say goodbye.
Right.
Until that one day, after Shape of Rain had come out, that I went back and looked at these notes and said, I need to go back into these memories. And that was sort of my grieving process. So, I think you're right in some ways. I've never termed it as a love story, but I think it is a love song to my mom. For sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But also to your bandmates.
Oh, indeed,
Chris
yes.
and Carrie.
Chris and Carrie, yeah.
And your partner, Cherie.
Yes.
And Michael, your son.
Yes.
And I found all of those stories just absolutely engaging.
Oh.
And the connection that you were able to make with all the stories and coming back to your mom, just I don't know, it all fit.
Well, thanks. I became fascinated with memory the idea of memory and what memory is. I mean, ultimately, right? Memory is how we make some sense of our lives. It puts our lives in context, We can remember the things we want. We can forget the things we want. And that seems really strange when we think in narrative terms, right? Because when we think about our past, we think about some memory we have, we're only going to remember certain parts of it, certain pieces of it that's going to tell a story of where we are right now. I like to think of like perhaps something that I've regretted or something you may have regretted. You're going to remember the thing that suits your present, right?
Right.
But it seems like the older we get and the more that we grow, we can look at those memories and look at that little painful scar, that little thorn in there, and see it differently. Suddenly we have a different empathy. Now the memory is shifted again somehow. Well, maybe I wasn't supposed to be that big of a jerk. Instead, but for the last 8 years, you've been justifying exactly. Right. No, I was right on this. And memory thus changes. Historians, there's this old adage, something about those that win the battles write the histories, right? Well, does that mean that's true?
Yeah.
And so those, I just became fascinated with the idea of what is memory and how does it define who we are and how we behave and even all the way back to trauma that we've experienced when we were kids, or how that carries forward and it informs our prejudices and our fears, our joys. More recently, I've been looking at this strange computer we hold in our hand every day, these cell phones, and I'm sure all of us have done that, but you've looked at your pictures, you look at your pictures and you can just thumb through memories, when you've taken pictures, why you've taken pictures. You can remember certain pieces and parts. You can even go in and edit those pictures to certain things you want to see, or make it a sepia tone memory. You get a chance to edit your memories.
The way you see it.
It's just fascinating.
That is fascinating.
So all of that sort of played into this idea of Gigmentia, this thought of what I can remember. Can I pay attention? Can I pay close enough attention to everything that's happening in front of me?
Right.
And I realized it's just impossible. It's just impossible.
Right.
It was a great exercise to try that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The stories that you tell and those little clips that you insert in the book that actually came from your journal, I thought were brilliant, because it just takes you back to that and helps you live that with you, which was really fun for me.
Well, and the people you meet along the way and the stories you tell, you've met some amazing people and and worked with amazing people, and the experiences that you've had. Just 50 performances in the festival scene. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And just the life of gigging is not an easy life. And that
and finding out how difficult it is and how physical it is to actually play the drum. I would
think about the blood on the cymbals, and I was like, he's bleeding again. I was like, he's got
bleeding again.
I'll be watching your hands from now on.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I dated a few drummers. I don't think they ever played that hard, but they bled. I mean, maybe they just weren't that good. I don't know.
I don't know.
Wonder.
I don't know that bleeding denotes greatness. Certainly not.
But I don't know. I'm wondering. In
fact, many drummers might actually say quite the opposite. You're hitting too hard. Relax back there,
maybe
fella.
You're just you're into it so much.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I do play with a certain amount of passion. But of course, much of that comes from my bandmates. And, both Christopher and Carrie are such remarkable humans and beautiful people, and fraught with their own unique issues and problems and joys, and their families. They could write their own Gigmentia really easily. And it was interesting to have to bring the book to them and share it, and have to say, okay.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, as we were talking about memory a moment ago, here's my memory.
Yeah, what's your take on this?
Here's what I recall.
Right.
And when I did take it to them, they had some things to say. In fact, they helped me fill in some blanks of some areas.
That's good.
Oh, that's great.
Corrected me with some names, just as good fellow artists should. Make sure that you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Right.
But there was one area in the book where I had to talk about that. It's not not always the best of friends. I mean, we truly are. We're brothers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But like brothers, we're going to fight from time to time.
Right.
So I had to include at least one particular altercation, which is in the book. And I singled Christopher out because, he's a passionate, thoughtful leader kind of guy. And sometimes if Carrie and I don't, buck up against him a little bit, what fun is that?
Right.
But I believe in the first draft I was a little pointed. I think the edge was a little there, and I had him read it, and it was so funny. He looked at me and goes, "Well, I don't remember it quite like that." And I thought, well, of course you don't.
Of course.
So I as a good bandmate should, I let him speak his side, and then I tempered it slightly.
That's fun.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun.
I like the fact that you included a story about what you imagined the fight to be before you actually described what actually happened.
Yeah, that was funny.
You saw actually happen.
Well, it's what it feels like from time to time.
Yeah, it was very fun.
When we have arguments, when you have an argument with anyone you love, it's hellish.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be there. And
right.
you struggle to figure out why you're there,
Yeah.
How did we get here? At least that's my approach to it. I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, it's Jason from Tubbs Coffee Roasters. We are North Idaho's specialty coffee roaster. We are homegrown and we are local. We love coffee and we love our community, especially Allie and Callie in ArtCast. We have a retail space in our roastery in Hayden, and we can also be found on the shelves at Super One and Yolks. And if you like to buy coffee online, we do offer subscriptions. You can find us at tubbscoffeeroasters.com. Support arts and culture and your local roaster. That's all.
So this kind of leads us into the fighting. It's play fighting, but you and your son Michael break into spontaneous sword fighting from time to time. And I gathered from the book that he's getting much better at it.
Oh my goodness. Well, he's 14 now.
Oh, wow.
And he is a force to be reckoned with. In fact, much of our sparring or fencing now, we have to wear armor.
Oh, wow.
Literal armor, because it's gotten to a point where, he knows that I won't thwack him up the side of the head, right?
Right.
He knows that I won't, but he's taking chances now that if it were some sort of competitive sword fight, he would get thwacked up the side of the head. So it's that point where the father has to smack the cub a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But he's a tremendous fencer.
Wow.
And he's had a sword in his hand since he was 1. I mean, we've been doing just little sword fighting, and it's just become kind of an adventure where I'll be sitting at my desk and working, and for example, I'd get up and go use the restroom, and then I'd come back, and there'd be a sword leaning up against my desk. And I know what's coming next.
Time for a sword fight.
Yeah, it's time for a sword fight. And I'll tell you what, it's wonderful for a writer who's seated most of the time, and
time to get up,
get your body up, and get moving, and get a little creative, and
that's great.
But yes, it's.
So they're not as spontaneous anymore because if you have to stop and put the armor on.
Well, that being said, there at 14. Well, 14's happened. That boyish spirit sort of transfigures into something else.
Right.
But we do still fence from time to time, and when we do get very serious, it is the full armor and it's full contact steel weapons, and it's an enormous amount of fun.
That's great.
An enormous amount of fun.
The first time I even realized that you did sword fighting was at, I think it was your first or second book launch. It was at the old Wiggets building.
Oh yes.
And there was sword fighting there, and that was like, I'm like, okay.
I think I understand what that's all about. I've always had a flair for the theatrical, and I thought every book launch has been a scene from the books. Mm-hmm. So every launch was some sort of pivotal moment. In the first book launch was a snapshot of the Uffizi, where Basil Fenn takes his own life.
Right.
The second one was part of a section in Leaves of Fire, where, again, The Shape of Rain was the masquerade ball. Mm-hmm. And tried to just throw those little scenes in there just because it's fun. Because it's fun. And
yeah.
I am blessed to be surrounded by some friends and other imaginative people that are just so fun, and you just throw that kernel out and they can turn it on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They just gather and they gather all their creative sensibilities and can do some fun stuff that way. So really blessed to have those people.
In the book you talk about is it the BEA? Is that
Book Expo America?
Yeah. Now that's not happening anymore.
No, it's not happening anymore.
And I love the stories though that you told from that, and the experience you had with Andreas, and when you took your partners with you.
Yes.
And that you met this wonderful gentleman.
Oh yeah, Chicken Delicious.
Chicken Delicious. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit about Chicken
Absolutely.
Delicious.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first part that made me cry. I loved it. What a character.
As it says in Gigmentia, my publisher Andreas John and I just decided that we went to this book expos in New York City in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. It takes place at the Javits Center, and it's a city of book vendors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is so big, it's hard to get your head around.
Right.
Every book, anything and anything to do with books is there. And so we go, of course, to take our books and try to hold up a flag amid all that chaos and say, hey, we're over here. And, and the people are walking by and they don't know we're there. Nevertheless, the evenings were a blast because after the show closes, you're in New York City. So what are a couple of fellas to do?
Right.
And so we found ourselves, on the street walking a lot. And one evening we come up, I want to say it's on the it's on the east side. I don't remember, so long ago, but we found a restaurant called Mimi's, walked in, and we were looking for a great Italian restaurant, and what do we see in the window but red checkered tablecloths and candles, and there it is. And it just so happened to be on 52nd Street, 52nd Street being a Billy Joel record that I love. Billy Joel so well, and the drummer Liberty DeVito. Huge fan of Liberty. We find ourselves walk in, and there's a piano bar, and there's this man that doesn't look terribly healthy. He's bald, very pale, not really overweight, just looking a little sickly, but the kindest eyes you'll ever see. We, of course, didn't see his face for 3 songs because right when we walked in, he had a bag over his head with 2 holes, and he's singing a song.
Oh my God!
As the evening went on, he played anything and everything that we wanted. Any particular thought that you may have from a New York piano bar came true that night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was either that or the scotch. It was either that or the scotch and how I'm trying to reconstruct the memory again.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was warm and wonderful. And Chicken had this sort of drawl. He'd talk sort of like this and say, hello, Andreas. Would you like to touch my organ, Andreas? He would do that.
I love it.
It was wonderful. And
wow.
And then between songs, we got the opportunity to talk with him, and he had a real otherworldly perspective. Had a very supernatural, magical quality about him. He was sort of a fortune teller. Sort of had his finger on the pulse of some of the. I don't want to say a cult, but he certainly had.
He was from down south, wasn't he?
He was from the south.
Yeah, so he's
was from
got that.
Yeah.
That little drawl.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting to meet him, and of course everybody that you know, we took Cherie and Michelle, Andreas, his wife, there, and we all had a ball that night. And Cherie and him just immediately kicked off and just had a blast together. And
That's fun.
yeah, it was fun.
But
And
he
I think it's
remembered
fun
you.
that he remembered you.
Yes, he did. That was really exciting.
That's the best
Really
part,
exciting.
is that, you know, years later, he remembers you.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about that Gigmentia ideas. I stood back and thought, how on earth could you remember us? You know, there's nothing terribly special about us. And yes, we're just probably more tourists that come in and ooh and ah that we're sitting in the same room with you. We're so excited to be in the city, and you know, that energy that you get.
Yeah.
And he remembered. And that ultimately is where the title comes from, Gigmentia. I could share that. It's a play on the word gig, which is slang for jazz musicians, you know, used to call it short for engagement. And then
Right.
mentia, which is Latin of the mind, right? So you jam them together. But the title, the name wasn't mine. It was actually Carrie. And forgive me, Carrie, if you're listening to this, because I hope I tell the story right. But he was in Oakland, in the airport, waiting to get on a plane, and a woman walked up to him and just started talking to him. Hi, Carrie. How have you been? Oh, the last time I saw the Rub, it was just so wonderful. You guys played so well. And Carrie looks at her and just, okay, I think I know who you are. Gosh, you look kind of familiar. And she's talking. She's bringing up all these. And you played that song. And I remember the pants you were wearing. That kind of thing, right? And poor Carrie, and he's listening and he's nodding and he's trying to be polite. And then finally he just reaches out and sort of puts his hand on her arm and says, you know, I'm so sorry. What was your name again?
Yeah.
And the woman was a little put off by it. She says, well, what do you mean? And he goes, oh gosh, please don't be upset. I'm sorry, I have Gigmentia.
So perfect.
And he told me that story when I was in the middle of writing this, and I thought, I think that's got to be the title of the book.
Right. I know.
Has to be the title of the book. And it's nothing personal. It's just from time to time, you just can't remember
No.
faces in it. And I'm pretty good at it. Christopher's fantastic at remembering people. But that's just the way his mind works.
Yeah, some people can do it.
So very sharp that way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
know, I get it. I've met so many people, especially since I started this job. And
right.
I don't remember names very well anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be so good at it. Now I'll always remember a face.
Sure.
Yeah.
But,
I'm the same way. I can.
yeah.
Face, no
that'll
name.
happen with
Yeah.
Cherie and I from time to time. We'll be out and we'll be out in the in a grocery store, and somebody will walk up and we'll have a talk for a second, and I know that I've met that person, and who was that? I'm like,
Yeah. It happened.
I can't.
Yeah.
Art
I have
mentia.
art mentia.
Art mentia.
I have acting
I think I
mentia.
just have mentia.
I have people come up to me and go, oh, we were in a show together. I go, oh, really?
For such a seasoned veteran, though, like Chicken Delicious, though,
That's
such
amazing.
an incredible talent that blew all of us away. And
I mean,
it
in a
was special.
city of
It
New
was special.
York size.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
To
for
be
sure.
remembered, that is an amazing
I thought
feat.
that was pretty
It was a
impressive.
great story.
Another story, great story that I've heard you tell numerous times, but I want you to tell it again, and that is as bookman in the grocery store.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Those are some of the funniest stories.
Yeah. So when my first book was out, we decided that I was, and still am, so genuinely enthusiastic about the material. It's hard to get a book into the marketplace, and it's hard to make people understand that, you know, what it really means to write a book, and especially if you want it to be successful. A friend of mine once told me there are 3,000 books that are released into the marketplace every single day. So when you start to do the math, and
You're like,
it's insane. So you wonder, gosh, how does a book actually become beloved, and any author would love for their book to become beloved. And there's a lot more to it than just the contents of the book. Obviously, the book has to have some merit and it has to be good, but you also want to have a really high flag. And then these words like publicity come in, and these words like promotion come in, and then, street teams and whatever else. But in the early days, back in when the first book came out, we thought, well, let's just start to generate some sales and let's just get on the street and do some real guerrilla kind of marketing.
Yeah.
So we connected with a distributor that distributed our book into grocery stores all throughout the Pacific Northwest. And they said, listen, we would love to distribute your books into all the grocery stores, everywhere, all the way from Montana over to Seattle down into Oregon. And that's a significant front row seat.
Oh, absolutely.
And with that, our connection there, our distributor said, it would really help sales too if you just set up a little bit of a tour. You went to these grocery stores and stood in the grocery store and talked to people about your book and just, you made yourself present. Yeah. Yes, it's just not a really great spot to be selling a book. But I was dumb enough to say, well, no. I was not that. Yes, I was dumb enough. No, I essentially just said, I'm going to just go try this, and so we set up a bit of a tour. It was about a 2 and 3 month thing where I was in 3 and 4 grocery stores a week, all over the Northwest. And I would go in and I would set up this cool little table with leather and my quill and ink, because the books have this sort of medieval flair. And I would stand there with a book in my hand and maybe a bookmark or a flat of what we call it, which is this little piece of paper that would talk about the book, and I'd hand them out and I'd just talk with people. And the people you meet, Gigmentia talks about a few of these things, but one that has always stuck with me was a woman coming by and rather short and maybe a little portly and not terribly dressed well. I like to think of myself as genuinely friendly, and I said hi, and she sort of looked me up and down, and I have long hair, but I was wearing a tie, and she looked at me and sort of sneered, and I said, do you have a book for the summer? Are you reading for the summer? And she looked at my hands and looked at the books behind me and said, well, my daddy didn't like us reading. And excuse me? Yeah, my daddy didn't like us reading books. So I swallowed, and she held my gaze in this sort of strange, like, that's not cool to look at me like that long. That's a little freaky. Yeah. But I kind of looked at her and went, okay. But I had nothing to say. I didn't know what to say.
What do you say?
Right?
Yeah.
And I think I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She said, yeah, nothing good comes of it.
Okay.
So then 2 of her kids jumped on the cart and they strolled by, went down the cereal aisle, and I watched them go, and I didn't. I think I left kind of soon after that.
Just like, I gotta go.
Hurting in sort of this way that's not.
That's hard.
You hear stories about that, but then to actually run into somebody.
It's real.
It's real. It's real. Crazy.
There was this great comedian, Bill Hicks. He had this bit. He said he was in a diner one time and he's sitting reading a book, and the waitress walks up and says, "What you reading for?" And he looks at, now I've had a lot of questions. I've had, what are you reading?
Yeah.
But what are you reading for? And I think his answers was something like, so I don't become a fucking waffle waitress. That's what I'm reading for.
Okay.
Oh my God,
wonderful
that's comedian
so funny.
Bill Hicks. Such a genius.
God.
What you reading for? And I thought of that at that moment when that happened.
Yeah, you're
Daddy didn't like us reading books.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
It's time to pack up the books and maybe not try.
But you know what?
That day.
But you know what? The really cool thing, it wasn't all negative, because then it was 10 minutes later that you have some guy walk around the corner with this short cropped hair and these big glasses, and he's carrying a bottle of wine and a bag of shrimp, and he says, "What the hell's this about?"
Yeah.
And you start talking to him about it, and you find out that he's an English teacher at the high school, and he can't wait, and he stands there and talks with you for 15 minutes.
Wow.
And it's just so, it was a really strange thing.
Yeah. You just never know.
Being in bookstores it's different. Obviously, people are looking for books, but
right.
Yeah.
So it was an adventure, to say the least.
Right. I do remember walking into the Super One in Post Falls, and I walk around the corner, and there's Michael with his stuff, selling his books, and I think he was so happy to see me. Somebody he knew.
Will you stand here with me for a minute?
And
will you buy one of my books? And I'm like, well, I already have one, but sure. And I bought another one.
Oh, that's great.
Oh my God.
It's true.
That's great.
That was so
it's
fun.
Not easy. It's not easy being the bookman.
That's right.
It
the
is
bookman.
I had teenagers asked if I could buy them beer one time.
Oh,
geez.
That was great. And I did.
God.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I didn't do that.
Just joking. Just joking. Oh my gosh.
Hi, Allie here. Hey, do you love our Artcast? Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or like us on Facebook to get notifications about some upcoming giveaways, like an official Allie and Callie mug. Our audience is growing too, and we are a great outlet for advertising. Consider being a sponsor, and Callie and I will record an ad for you or help you record it yourself. Thank you for listening.
Well, I want to get back to you and the bands, and your experiences on the road, and there's a lot of things we have to talk to.
I know, we need more time. I just realized you were with the DOD when I was with the DOD.
You were in the DOD?
I did a tour with the DOD. Probably not as long as you, but I did the South Pacific tour, and for 3 months.
Did that go up through Guam?
Yeah.
Japan? Yes, I did that exactly. What year?
Okinawa, 1990. I want to say it was either 97 or 98. I can't remember.
I was right in there. Christopher and I were on that same tour.
You probably followed us, or we followed you. Either way.
How was that?
Yeah.
Something.
So I was like,
wonderful.
oh my God, that's so cool. we followed the same path. Yeah. We were a little like three women, three men. We sang with what do you call them? Tracks.
That is the best.
But we went to like the DMZ zone, and
sure.
we were supposed to go on the battleships, but we had a faulty light in our cargo plane, so we couldn't go up. So we were stuck on Guam. So
Guam's an interesting place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, we were stuck in Diego Garcia. And we got to go sailing on a catamaran for 2 days. And
fun.
We had time off. I was like, okay.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, so we did the same thing. I was like, I have something in common.
Yay.
It was fun. But anyway, KITE, that's cool. I didn't even know you were with KITE. See, there's a lot of things. I was like, that's cool.
And we should explain what the DOD is.
Department of Defense.
Right.
Department of Defense, military, MWR, morale, welfare, and recreation for the military.
Yeah.
So were the live shows that come in and play for the troops. And it was a real honor to do that.
It was.
Real honor to do that.
I remember one of the soldiers said to you, what was it? It was so sweet.
It's like bringing a piece of home.
Bring a piece of home to him. And I was like, I so remember that. Having them come up to you and say, I love that song and thank you so much.
We always forget that, those soldiers that are out there.
They're people.
They're young.
And they're babies.
They're kids.
Yeah.
And you could see the homesickness,
Oh, yeah.
And you could see them
they
just
come with tears in their
home.
eyes.
And you play them a song. And
some of them
of course, that it brings a memory, and it sends them right back to the only real definitive magic that we know of. Art, right?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm always talking about the power of music. In the elderly, it's pretty impressive what it does to them too. Yeah. So I imagine, like the one soldier you talked about who came up and gave you a hug, and this huge 6'5"
African-American man, just absolutely beautiful, just beautiful brown eyes, and huge guy carrying an M60 machine gun.
Yep.
And this is during Desert Shield, so they had to be, and they had gas masks. We all had gas masks. I had to carry a gas mask.
That was
Oh
crazy.
boy, yeah.
It's some really scary moments, being put into these places that you're going. I would never tell my mom,
Right.
where are you going today?
Yeah, some things moms don't need
They
to
don't
know.
Mom
need to
didn't
know.
need to know where I was going to
Nope.
be that day.
Nope. Crazy. But then you got the rubbish. We explain the rubbish.
Yeah, the rubbish.
Oh.
I love, you talk about the rubbish in the book.
Well, the band's called The Rub, and why wouldn't you have a group of close friends that love to come and see you, and they need a name too? So I don't know that we named them. I know that a T-shirt came out somewhere.
funny.
None of us made it.
Wow.
But there was a rubbish T-shirt that was designed and brought into the fold.
That's so fun.
This is people like Rod and Sarah and Dennis and Doug and there's several others, and they've been with us ever since the beginning. We started, now we're at our 15th year.
Wow.
And they still come out and see us, and we always try to reserve tables for them if we can.
That's great.
Or a place for them. And
Now, were they the ones that gave you the violin case?
no,
Who
the
gave you
violin
that?
case. The violin case is a portable bar
Yes.
that was created by my dear friends Eric and Lori Wilson out of Portland, and that was a gift many, many years before. But sometimes when you're playing a show and you want to have a cocktail, and the hall is too busy to kind of go out to the bar, we rely on the violin case, and you open the violin case, and
I love
there's
it.
all kinds of wonderful things in there. Some things we can't mention.
No.
In certain states, we can't mention. But yeah, it's just its own portable bar, so we can just make ourselves a cocktail and sit backstage or wherever we are.
That's fun.
Yeah, but then when you're walking in, it looks like you play violin.
That's right.
Right, but you lost it.
What's in the violin case? Well, it's the violin case.
It's violin.
Right,
The violin.
but you lost it. Did you ever find it?
I haven't, but there is a warrant out. I accidentally set it on the back of my car when I was in a rush trying to get to a show, and as I drove onto the freeway, I realized that I had left it on top of the car, and when I went to look, it was gone.
It's
That's
gone.
such a bummer.
So there is a reward if you happen to find it. There are telltale signs that it was mine. So
Right.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's such a bummer. 'Cause
I know.
It
It is a
sounded
bummer.
like
But
fun.
since then, Cherie has, for my birthday last year, gave me a new violin case. So we have a new one.
Good.
Nice.
So it's been reconstructed thanks to Cherie.
Oh,
Nice.
good.
Very
I was
nice.
hoping so, because I was hoping you were going to say that at least you got another one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Because
Yeah.
that's a pretty fun,
It is pretty
fun little tool. And I loved
But-
your description of loading your gig bag.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I never really thought about a band member needing certain things when they go to a show.
Yeah, that was one of the first exercises that I realized that if I'm gonna tell this story, I guess I should really get detailed. And so I just was sitting there looking at my gig bag, and the gig bag, of course, is everything. It's the backpack that I take to a show, and it goes with me to every show. Carrie has his own version, and Christopher has his own version. But mine is, practice pad inside, super glue blisters, and a first aid kit, and a headlamp when it's dark, and
Your shirt and
granola
tie.
I wish wear a shirt and tie, and drumsticks for practice pad. It's just all of those things. And as I started to unpack everything and look at them, each one of those particular things has a memory attached to it. Each one of those things has its own story. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into here? and even more so, is anybody going to want to read that?
No.
I mean, again, that exercise of trying to, what is that mundane? Is it mundane? Is there really something beautiful about a first aid kit? Well, certainly there is if there's a story attached to it. Right?
Exactly.
If you can make it,
It's
compelling
the
to some
blood on the cymbals
Yeah.
Yeah.
story.
Who knew?
Oh my gosh.
Play so hard, he bleeds.
That's right.
Gotta watch out.
Such energy.
I love there was a part in the book, I think it's in your memories chapter, where you talk about writing on the death's door. And then you have a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, every wall is a door. And then your quote is, every door is a desk. And so you write on a door.
Yeah.
And then you explain the many uses of a door.
Right. That was
I
cool.
love that because there are so many different meanings of a door. You know, a door is opening and a door closes, and it opens new journeys, and I just, that was very insightful. That was like kind of the Winnie Pooh Tao. What's that book? Remember
Winnie
that
the
book? There was that book of Tao, or
the Tao of Pooh, I think.
the Tao of Pooh.
The Tao of Pooh is what it was called, if I remember right.
It just had that, and I was like, oh, I love this.
Oh,
door. Yeah, that was very sweet.
Yeah, it was fun. I literally, at that time, I did not have a desk.
Yeah.
And my friend, I think I call him Agamemnon in the book, but it's actually my friend Scott Haynes.
Yeah.
Gave me a door from his rafters, and I put it up on milk crates in one of my early houses, and I still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have great doors in your house, apparently. You've got a round door?
Hobbit door.
I had a round door.
Okay.
I do have round gates right now. I did live in a house where I had constructed a real round Hobbit door.
Which is so fun.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
But it's odd, and no one really ever thinks of this, or at least I didn't when I was constructing. I thought, I'm going to put a round door in this wall. And then I thought, okay, well, I better go. Well, I'm 6'1", so I guess we're going to want that to be 6'4", maybe.
Right.
Okay. And then you measure yourself how tall you are, and then you go, well, wait a second, it's round.
It's got to
Wait
be
a minute,
that
that's
wide.
6'4" wide, right? So the diameter is that's a wall,
Right.
and then you understand why hobbits they were small,
Right.
They were little guys. So
I actually saw that studio.
oh, yes, you
You
did.
had it on the studio tour.
That's right.
One year.
Oh, fun.
And it was really cool and got a lot of attention from people that were out on the studio tour.
Yeah, that was a fun day. I remember that day.
Very
That was
creative.
fun.
That's
yes,
cool.
it was very creative.
Oh. Well, what do you feel is next for you, Michael? When this book is out, will you go out on tour and promote it?
Yeah, we're actually talking about a tour right now. It hasn't really formulated yet, but we are talking about doing a bit of a tour for the book. I'm hoping we're talking about the book launch, and I'm not. It seems obvious that the Rub should probably play the book launch, but then I thought, well, I don't know that I want to play the book launch.
Right.
So yeah, because you would have to play too. Duh.
Well, I'd have to play. I'd have to work. I'd have to go to work
then
and bleed on the
you'd be
cymbals.
gigging.
Oh yeah, no, I don't.
You'd be gigging at Gigmentia.
Yeah, I'd be gigging at Gigmentia, and I don't want to do
That's
that.
a lot.
That's way too many gigs in one gig.
That's a lot of gigs.
Maybe you get the rubbish to take your place.
Well, there you go. There you go. But yeah, we're talking about a bit of a tour, but I don't really know what that looks like right now. Really, the thing that we're working on right now is New Earth is in.
Wanted to bring that up. New Earth and the
New Earth is in development for TV right now.
Right.
That's awesome.
And that's really exciting and vexing all at the same time. It's a world I
process.
don't understand very well.
Right.
And it seems like right when I get my fingernails into it, it shifts into something different, and I don't know what it means. And but I am learning a lot, and but it's looking great. So
Good.
We're moving forward pretty quickly.
Oh, that's
Good.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
It's finally starting to gel.
Well, yes. In fact, the script is fantastic. We just went through some new script changes, and now we're moving into more into the pitch process. So things are changing all the time. It's such a process that it's so hard to explain.
Right.
I could talk about things like attachments and what producers do and how pitches work and who gets in, and it's and not one of it would be accurate. Not one thing that I would say would be accurate.
And I probably still wouldn't understand.
Yeah, it's just we know it takes a long time.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't happen overnight.
It does.
Right.
But
So
the
are
reception of the trilogy is fantastic, and so
That's great.
that we're really excited to bring it to people and
That's
in
awesome.
that visual way. So,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I know it's been fun to talk to Kristen about, dreaming about which actor might play which part.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of fun to...
Casting's a blast. I'm an armchair casting director. I love to do that all the time. I'll be watching a show on Netflix or something. Oh, that guy can play Locke. Well,
I know that you actually met Viggo Mortensen and was able to talk to him a little bit. And you tell the story.
Well, it's very little bit. But when I had my first, just as I was finishing the final draft for the first book, I learned that he was he was actually appearing before a movie to do a Q&A in Sandpoint. Mm-hmm. And I was so just enthusiastic about what I was doing and so excitable and filled with this youthful, I've got to give him a copy of this book. I want him to play one of the characters.
Right.
And I would never, had I seen if I see anyone of any particular fame or in that industry sitting and eating dinner with their family, I would never approach them. But I figured he's doing a Q&A, he's working.
Yeah.
And if he's working, I'm working.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my justification. In fact, I even told him that when I met him. I said, I see you're working.
So I feel like
He laughed. I see you're working. I wouldn't approach you otherwise. And I actually gave him a 3-ring binder with all of my notes in the margin. I don't know what the hell I was thinking.
Oh boy!
But we stood there, and he's. I'm not even acquainted with him.
Right.
So I don't know him at all. But what I do know is the energy he gave off and his genuine, gosh, thank you for sharing that with me, was so. Yeah. It was so wonderful.
Yeah.
And, he could have done a lot of things, but he didn't. He was very, very kind and ended up, I think it was 3 months later, he sent me a postcard from Spain. Mm-hmm. Telling me that he appreciated the book and liked it, but he couldn't appear because he had, or he couldn't entertain helping to develop it because he was in the middle of 50 other things. And so now I'm really angry with him.
Because dead to him.
Now you're dead to me.
And he didn't send you the manuscript back.
No, he didn't send me the manuscript.
Notes. Oh my goodness.
We ended up sending him one of the early scripts, though, and he wrote us another note. In fact, helped us put a review together. So I like to think in my very small mind that he's a huge fan.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That keeps me going.
He didn't have to write anything. So
that's right.
See?
He didn't.
I know. I love that.
Yeah, so that's nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And he's got a place up in Clark Fork, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does, but
I don't know either.
I don't either.
Heard that he did move to Spain. But,
Spain, yeah.
But anyway.
Well, we love the book.
Yeah.
And we're excited for the book to be out for the public.
Right.
In March.
And we're excited for whatever you end up doing with the book launch, because we know it will be great and we know we'll be invited.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We're having some fun, look in that direction, and yeah, it's going to be fun.
And what are the rules?
And what are the rules?
I know what they are. The rules of music.
The rules of music.
That also makes me laugh, because I bet I asked them the last time we interviewed the Rub.
Yeah, what are the rules?
I was like, what are some of the songs you don't want to play or that you do want to play? And I'm sure it was, they said, these 5 songs.
Well, yes, they shift around. The rules is a kind of a little shtick that we do from time to time in the middle, and it's usually if there's a particular sort of Karen-esque kind of person that's screaming songs at us, or more often screaming at Christopher,
right?
And demanding that we play this at this moment with her hands on her hips and with full fervor.
Oh boy!
And so we have to sometimes put our foot down and say, okay, we know you're really excited, but we have to tell you there are 5 songs we don't play. Yeah. It's not that we can't play them; we just have decided that we don't play them.
Yeah.
And the incredulous responses that we actually are saying, no, we don't want to play these songs. It's only 5 in the canon of all rock and roll.
Right.
We usually say there's 5 we don't play, but we'll play everything else, even if we don't know it.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's sort of like this agreement with an audience to be able to say, look, Can we just have 5 that we don't want to play?
Right.
You'd be amazed at how angry people get when you say, "No, we don't play Sweet Home Alabama." People in the back go, "What the fuck?
Yeah, right.
You don't what?
Why not?
Get out of here!" You know, it's insane.
That is
You know,
insane.
I've seen people throw shit at us. You know, they're throwing stuff, or if we'll say, you know, or we don't play Brown Eyed Girl, and then there's always some, you know, in the background.
Oh my!
So we don't play Brown Eyed Girl. It's not that we don't love the song. It's an amazing song. So Sweet Home Alabama. It's an absolutely marvelous piece of music that changed the world, right?
Yeah.
We don't play old time rock and roll.
Yeah.
I just, you know, it's an amazing recorded song. Bob Seger is an absolute genius.
Yeah.
The song is
Yeah.
compelling. Put it on the radio.
Yeah.
Get the CD. But we just don't play it.
Right.
Mustang Sally.
Yep.
I love that song.
It's a great song.
But I've played it so many times that there's just some little bit of magic. And then we usually say there's one more song we don't
and they
play.
know what it is.
And
Don't
it's
they know?
whatever the one they just requested
Right.
that you don't feel
they'll
like
say,
playing.
"Taking care of business." And we'll go, "That's the one." Or they'll say, "Freebird."
Yeah.
And we'll say, "That's the one." Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Every
it's kind of
time
a
I
dumb
hear
thing.
Mustang Sally, it takes me right back to Chelsea's.
Oh, gosh, I love
And
Chelsea's.
listening to the band play Mustang Sally, and I'd get out there and dance with just about anybody that wanted to dance.
Chelsea's was that pub up on 4th Street, and that was where I played my very first gig at 17 years old.
Is that right?
And I used to stand, I would go, as soon as I got my driver's license, I would stand by the back door, and I'd go there as often as I could on Fridays and Saturday nights, and I'd go by myself, and I'd just go, and I'd listen to the bands. They'd leave that back door open in the summer,
Yeah.
so you could see the bands. It was just right up to the stage, and I'd stand there, and finally, they let me get up and play. And so I would go back a lot, and that kid's here again. And so I'd get up and play these songs, just struggling through these weird little blues songs, and these older guys that were all whacked out. They were completely trashed most of the time, as any good blues musician should be.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. It was just fantastic that they let me up and do that.
That was my hangout.
Yeah.
I probably saw you, but I probably
There's a good chance of it.
would not remember, and that is another. I think they call that alchemenia.
Alchemenia. I think there's a more technical term, but yeah, we could use that. That's a safer term.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh boy, that's fun.
You've had quite a career, and the fact that you're not only a great musician but a great writer, and you've maybe inspired new musicians to play the drums till they bleed.
Right, till they bleed.
And then this book really is a sweet read. I mean, it's
And the tenderness that you have about your mom is
sweet,
really,
and about fatherhood and everything about and friendship and just kind of and what it's like to actually be a working musician.
Right.
And it's not all easy, and it's not all. I don't know.
I like the list of things that that you never understand about a musician.
And what's that?
Well, they're not in music to get laid.
Nope.
And
there are some.
Some do.
I'm sure there are some.
I know people that
Yeah,
that's you can even listen to old jazz musicians. They talk, "Hey, I picked up the horn so I could get some," and they are absolutely blatant about it.
Yeah, I don't doubt that either.
But not all.
Yeah.
Right. But I love this one. Not being famous is actually okay for them.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
They're artists, and artists are weird. I can totally attest to that. And music isn't a dream, it's a way of life. And just because you haven't heard of us doesn't mean we aren't successful. There are many more levels of musician than starving artist and chart-topping superstar. And keeping time means something very different to us, to you guys, to you in particular, because you are the timekeeper of the band.
Yeah, that yet again lent itself back into this idea of memory. To be able to keep time. As a drummer, that's what you kind of do. You have to you've got you keep that timeline, and everybody's dancing to it, and the band is playing on the line that you provide. And if you lose it, you're not there.
Yeah.
And then keeping time by journaling and keeping memories,
which is great. And I wish I would have journaled more in my life, because I don't remember a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, I can look at a picture of my life and go, I kind of remember that. And it happens more often than not. People will say, you were there. And I go, I don't really remember that. Maybe if I had journaled more, I would remember more.
Maybe.
Yeah,
and as
I
we
like
get
to think
older,
so.
I think it's important to jot it down. And I like the way you do it. Just one sentence might be enough.
Yeah,
Right.
and I did a lot of like scribbling and I'll do quick sketches from time to time, because before phones, the ubiquity of I would just do a quick sketch, and that was fun, actually being able to include like just little things that were right out of the journal, which was fun. That was Michael's idea. And he said,
nice.
Dad, you should probably do that. And I said, are you sure? And he said,
Smart kid. Yeah.
He is smart.
He's a pretty smart kid. He's a pretty smart
Well, I would like to toast to you and
Yes.
your
Oh,
book,
that's kind of
Yes.
and to our 75th episode.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Cheers. Cheers. And thank you to our producer, Kristen.
Yes, Kristen.
Thank
we
you.
couldn't do it without you.
And to Janie, our sometimes producer.
That's right, our fill-in producer, who's
And,
learning and loving it too.
That's right. And to the Arts and Culture Alliance for allowing us to do this.
Yep.
Not allowing us, that sounds terrible, but letting us, or providing us with
How
this.
about humoring us?
That's the one. Ding, ding.
All right.
All right. All right. Well, until next year.
Yep, and we'll see you next season. We've got already got some great ideas for people to talk to, so we're excited to bring all of that to you. And
So happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas,
happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Hanukkah, Shalom, Happy New
Happy
Year,
New Year.
and all the other holidays in between. And we'll see you in 2023.
That's right. And I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie, and whatever you do today, make sure it's creative, and maybe do some journaling.
And maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
The Allie and Callie Artcast is a program of the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance and is sponsored by NIA, North Idaho Alliance, a woman-based leadership organization designed to inspire, uplift, and impact your community and lives. And Tubbs Coffee Roasters, globally sourced, locally roasted coffee.